It's interesting how we have more people from the industry speaking out. And of course, they're doing it anonymously and they're
Yeah.
reaching out to certain YouTubers and stuff like that. But it's starting to happen little by little, more and more, that they're feeling more comfortable speaking out. And they're almost all saying the same thing, where they feel like they're in a cult. They feel like they're in an industry where they can't say anything, can't express themselves. It's either, you do as you're told, or, get off or get out. It's
Yeah,
pretty
the
terrible.
toxic positivity that we've been talking about.
I think it goes fucking past that.
Oh
at
yeah,
this point.
100%. But
Yeah, it's a very, very aggressive version of that toxic positivity
yeah.
at this point. All right, let me bring up this person. So I know you had sent this to me as well, and I made a video on this person, this interesting creature. We got Emma Kent. Emma Kent is a game consultant. At least that's what they call themselves. What do you know about Emma Kent?
I don't actually know too much. They are a former games journo. They were a game journo at Eurogamer, who now freelances and calls themselves a game consultant. So
okay, so at this point, I feel like game consultant is just a title that people are going to adopt whenever they want to create, I don't know, a fake job out of their uselessness. That's really what it is. So Emma Kent went a little bit of a melty and kind of did this entirely long thread about what essentially Alyssa Mercante, right? Like, this is what DEI consultants really do. Kind of a situation. She says, "Hello, game consultant here. The idea that consultants are forcing diversity into games is ridiculous, because 99% of the time, the devs have already decided they want their game to be inclusive and just want help fine-tuning how certain stories come across. Hope this helps."
If you are so bad at your job that you need other people to come in and tell you how to do your job, you shouldn't have that job in the first fucking place. If you want diversity and inclusivity in your title, you have to do it naturally instead of having bullet points of how you want another company and other people to fix it.
I would agree like 99% of the way. And the only reason why I say 99% is because there are some situations where you might actually need a consultant. Consultancy is a thing where it's been around in many different industries, but when it comes to gaming in particular, I feel like this is where it gets a little bit ridiculous, because we have gone through a time where games have existed for decades. Great stories have been told over the years, and we have seen that now that the industry feels like they're forced to have consultants, which again is the reason why this whole 99% have decided to have their game be inclusive. That's because they're forced to at this point. They're not going to do it organically or naturally. They have to, whether by an ESG mandated report or they have to just because the studio has those particular rules involved with it. It doesn't matter. The point is they have to, and they have all these consultants, and the stories have gotten worse, right?
Yes.
So whereas before they didn't really have consultants, they were being made from people who actually cared about making good games for gamers, and the stories were better. So clearly consultancy is not working. So I don't understand why we have that requirement. It's completely retarded. We never needed it before. And, all it is it's a bill. It's a bill to do nothing. It's a bill to what? Kill your game for the most part?
Yeah, I mean, it all goes back to people like Anita Sarkeesian and Zoe Quinn during Gamergate 1, because now if you look at what these ladies are doing, they call themselves consultants and they're doing consultancy work, all because they twisted the definition of what Gamergate 1 was, which was really about ethics in video game journalism, and they twisted it to call it a hate campaign. And so they got a lot of attention. They had a lot of companies that were giving them money, and then they had to do something with that money besides pocket, 95% of it. So they had to put the other 5% to something else. And then they started gamer hotline. So you could, call in if you were being harassed, like bully hunters. And then they tried to start Kickstarters and GoFundMes for video games when they already had funding. And then they realized none of that was going to work because they were so disliked within the industry. And then, the Neil Druckmanns who follow this like cult mentality, or at this point it's like a religion to these people, and then they hired them even though they knew that they were going to ultimately most likely lose money on these projects. But it all harkens back to Gamergate 1.
You are 100% right. 100% right. And you know what, it's also one of those things where consultancy for inclusivity is a little bit odd to me, because then that's essentially implying that the industry is racist without it, right? So that's kind of like it. So to have a consultancy based around inclusivity, diversity, and all that stuff, like they specialize in doing that, that's essentially to say, well, the industry is not doing it enough on their own.
Well,
So the
that's what
industry,
these people think. They think that it's overran with, white cis men, and that all these men have never made space for women in the video game industry, which is absolutely fucking absurd, because if you look back at like Roberta Williams, she helped shape the video game industry, but we're going to ignore her history simply because we need to push a narrative now that women have never been allowed. Women have always been allowed.
well, that she probably didn't have the right pronouns. That's probably why
Well, it's
she's being
because
forgotten.
she started a company with her husband, so she doesn't count. Oh my
Oh no, not the
gosh.
nuclear family.
Yeah.
No, we can't do that. We can't do
Right.
that. What I will say is that without those white cisgender males that they like to complain about, they wouldn't have an industry to co-opt in the first place. But this is kind of like the circle of life, right? In the game, in just in general, where okay, you have this thing, and the diverse crowd, even though real diversity has always existed in these spaces, the fake diverse crowd, they're like, you need to let us in your space, otherwise you're bigoted. And
Right.
then people are stupid enough and they say, okay, we're not bigoted, you can come on in and hang out with us. And then they say, well, no, this needs to change, otherwise
Right.
that's not good and you're bigoted. And then you change it, and then they say, well, if you don't like the changes, you need to get out and make your own thing. And then you leave and go make your own thing, and then they ask to be in that thing. So again, it's a fucking circle of nonsense.
Yeah, and it really, as a woman, bothers me so much to see and hear so many of the women in the industry right now basically shame or completely ignore the existence of women that came before them in the industry, because like Anita Sarkeesian, for example, loved to rant and rave about how there weren't women, which is absurd. Like I said, Roberta Williams co-founded Sierra with her husband. We have Carol Shaw, who was one of the first female video game developers and programmers. She created River Raid for Activision in like 82 or 83. You have, Yoko Kanno, who wrote scores for Cowboy Bebop, Ghost in the Shell, and then she did Dreamcast games. Like, we are talking about so many established women in this fucking industry, and it's amazing to see more women. It's great to see people that are from different backgrounds, and I don't care about your sexuality if you can make good content, but all these people do is make it about, oh, how can we make more money? Well, let's use our gender, let's use our sexuality as like a tool. And then companies, of course, use that as a shield, and it's just created such a toxic cycle.
Let him cook.
It should be let her cook, but sorry, that's the only clip I got.
Whoa, did you just misgender me? I'm triggered. I'm
fucking right, I did.
canceling this
Let him cook
stream.
now.
It's over.
That's how
Let
you
him
fucking
cook.
right, I did. You fucking, the chat's laughing at that. What I will say is, in terms of, you were saying the history of women in gaming and whatnot. One of my favorite mangas, and I'm sure you know of it, was made by a woman. Can you guess which one that is?
Now, which one?
Be Full Metal Alchemist.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, of course. It's like,
Well-
I absolutely fucking love Bayonetta, and Mari Shimakaze, I believe is how you say her name. She was the lead character designer and the art designer. And of course, they love to never talk about her because Bayonetta is one of the most sexy female video game characters in existence.
Exactly. So they choose to ignore the actual, good work that women have done throughout the years, all because now they want to weaponize their gender. So in order to do that, they have to pretend like they were never here in the first place, which that's bullshit. I know that's
Yeah.
bullshit. Anybody
And
who knows anything knows that's bullshit.
And in Hollywood, they're doing the same thing. Oh, this is the first movie or the first Marvel movie starring a female or a person of color. It's the first reboot with this type of person or that type of person. Everybody wants to be the first, but all they are doing is pushing down the people that came before them, and it just proves how narcissistic they really are. They only care about themselves.
It's true. And you're right about the whole first thing. I've talked about that a lot, where they're just obsessed with trying to make that headline. And Disney's really big on that. Disney's big on that, and now a lot of gaming studios are big on it. But Disney was doing that for a while, where they were releasing a whole bunch of race swap movies, and they kept saying, "Oh, this is the first, I don't know, whatever, XYZ
Yep.
for anything," and they were running that for like fucking 3 years, 4 years in a row. until eventually people were like, you know what, this is kind of dumb. But I kind of feel like that's why they're making a whole bunch of these fake titles anyway, these, you know, fake genders and fake everything, because eventually you kind of run out of
Right.
being able to say the first, and they want to keep being able to say that, to pretend like this DEI initiatives are making history when it's not making history. Right? It's kind of like in Call of Duty, Black Ops 6. Oh, the first non-binary operator. It's like, bitch, it's a fucking female operator. There's been female operators in the game forever. All you did was slap a non-binary label on it, and now you want to pretend like you made history? Shut the fuck. It's the same shit.
Right. And it's like how we see that how we see, you know, the gender swaps and the race swaps happening. So you have like the recent, you know, Batman anime series where you have the female penguin, and they push these established characters to the side. And I know that with DC, there's kind of like this problem of using two characters on screen at the same time that are too similar. Like it happened back in the day with Gotham. They couldn't call Jerome Joker because there was already a Joker on screen.
Right.
But we see how that's happening. And then they love to constantly preach when they do put females into pieces of content or people of color into content. And look at how, you know, the Penguin is doing right now with Sophia Falcone. Everybody's praising the show because it's genuinely good writing. They're not going on press tours like, oh my God, we have a female villain in this show who's going against the Penguin. No, it's just happening to be a female character and everybody likes her. This is what happens when you just focus on writing instead of preaching.
Yeah, but that's very difficult for a lot of these writers.
It is.
In their mind, you know, their identity is their existence. Yeah. So if you deny it, you deny they exist, and that's basically it. At that point, they're gonna lose their mind. So let's read what Emma Kent said, because again, she had a little bit of a melty. We read her first comment here. The second one says, the people peddling this conspiracy theory, and again, every time they say conspiracy theory, I laugh because it's almost always true, are fabricating rage bait content to grow their YouTube channels and social media followings. They do not understand how the industry actually works, nor do they care to learn, because they are simply seeking engagement. What do you think about that?
I think that what she is doing by posting on social media is seeking engagement.
I think you are based in that response.
I mean, that's what she's doing. If she can say that I'm doing that, sure, she's doing the same exact thing. Okay. Right. Congratulations, you want a fucking gold sticker, lady? Like, holy shit, you're doing the same thing.
Especially since she locked replies to people who only follow her. They do that because they want the quote tweets.
Yeah.
That's how tweets go viral. They want that. They don't want the comments. They want the quote tweets. Yeah. The fact that this has been brought up again in reference to Dragon Age, the Veilguard, is particularly laughable. This is my favorite part. Have the people throwing these forced DEI allegations around ever actually played a BioWare game?
I mean, has she ever played a BioWare game?
That was my question in the video I made today. I was like, have you ever actually played one?
Where the fuck is your playthrough of a BioWare game, lady?
You know, I find this interesting because their excuse or what they try to say is, I don't know, I guess woke or whatever. It's just simply gay relationships, which again, the gay relationships have existed since the beginning. And I know most people, they tend to throw around the word woke whenever they see a gay relationship. I understand. I get why, patterns and everything. But that doesn't mean anything, right? Like Dragon Age has had some of the gayest relationships. They've also had some of the straightest relationships. You know, like you've been able to do a little bit of everything. And you have that choice. And that's what made those games good. The choice, right? What you're going into when it comes to Veilguard, it don't look like much choice, right? It looks like it's going to be trans ideology down your throat, non-binary pronoun nonsense down your throat, and all these androgynous looking characters that even if you are in a straight relationship, you're going to feel pretty gay. Like that's just how it goes. I actually saw a pretty funny video on Twitter, and I'll share it in a bit, where somebody posted their rook and the female dwarf, I forgot her name, having like a kiss or whatever. And it's a straight, it's a male and a female. And they're like, damn, I feel fucking gay watching this. And I don't know why. I'm like, bro, it's because these characters look like they're both dudes for the most part. That's the problem. So
That's why I've been so worried about the Knights of the Old Republic remake. My audience knows KOTOR is one of my favorite games of all time. I've streamed it. I love it. It's so fucking fantastic. But the problem that we face with that remake, if it ever comes out at this point, is Revan. Because canonically, Revan's a man, but in that game, you could choose to be a male or a female. And I would be perfectly fine if they still continued on with being a male or a female. But then in comes the questions of relationships and would they handle them the same way like Bastila could only romance the male Revan? Would they make it so she can romance both? Would these characters constantly flirt with your Revan? Like there's a whole lot of questions, which is why I don't want them to remake it, even though it's one of my favorite games, just because I know that they're going to butcher it.
So out of curiosity, because I'm not sure, are you a fan of Mass Effect?
I am. I like Mass Effect.
How fucked do you think the next Mass Effect game is after seeing Veilguard?
I have not had any hope in anything BioWare has made in like half a decade. So I think it's going to be just as bad as this, if not worse.